Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 3:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up at 3:30, Senator Rick Santorum joins us. We'll talk to him about that Al Smith dinner yesterday. Big charity for Catholics. President Trump shows up. Kamala Harris snubs the Catholic vote. We'll talk about that with Senator Santorum. Chris Bedford joins us at 4 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock from Hot Air, David Strom. All such great guests. Can't wait to talk to each of them. And we'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Some more early voting underway in Virginia this week as more and more places open up for you to be able to do that. Was texting with a good friend, Brian, earlier about this. He was standing in line today in Fairfax County. He said that the wait at his polling location is now over an hour. It's been, and they say that basically all day long, no matter what time you show up, it's over an hour wait, at least where he's voting. And that there are a lot of Trump supporters in line, way more than he expected. Now, it could be also, like, as these polling locations open, Republicans front load them. You know, they show up the first opportunity they can if there's a polling location near their home, and they get out there and they cast those ballots, and maybe Democrats show up later. But, we keep watching, keeping our eyes on this, and there's a lot of Republican enthusiasm going on, certainly in the red counties in the state. And sometimes I wonder to what extent places like Fairfax County, for instance, you see big numbers show up, and you wonder, okay, but what percent of those are Republican voters? Just no way to know. Just no way to know until the ballots are actually counted. But when you see Fairfax County have a big turnout, the guys who are trying to handicap the early vote, they say, okay, we'll put that in the blue column because that's a mostly Democrat area. But it's a little more complicated than that, a little more dynamic than that. So we'll see. My gut tells me right now that this is going to be a closer race in the Commonwealth than anybody thought in terms of the conventional wisdom. Might I be wrong? Yeah, it's possible. It doesn't usually happen, but I may be wrong about that. But we'll see. If it is close in Virginia, that says very good things about the rest of the country. Very good things. So let's make it close, shall we? I'd love to make it close. Love to get a big victory in Virginia. Democrats, if you're looking for some more indicators that are more grounded in data, you have Democrat candidates going down the ballot right now who want nothing to do with Kamala Harris. Have you seen this trend this week? Democrats who are now outright avoiding Kamala, as the Daily Caller today puts it, Henry Rogers, like the plague. Battleground Democrats are avoiding Kamala Harris like the plague as Election Day nears. Several Democrats running for key Senate seats have distanced themselves from Vice President Kamala Harris and her bid for the presidency as polling continues to tighten between her and former President Donald Trump. Democrats such as Texas Representative Colin Allred, Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, and Montana Senator John Tester have been largely quiet about Harris's bid for president or have even skipped campaign events for Harris in their own states. They don't even want to appear on stage with her. Allred, who is running against Republican Senator Ted Cruz, appears to be trying to keep Harris at arm's length. He didn't appear with Harris during any of her half-dozen visits to Texas around July and the beginning of August. Allred's first endorsement of Harris, which came from his account on Twitter, was described as, quote, cautious and unclear, and focused primarily on Joe Biden's legacy. Isn't that amazing? That's funny. So he's focused on Joe Biden's legacy. In other words, like, Joe Biden is a safer thing to talk about than Kamala Harris. And they replaced Joe with Kamala, thinking that he was the stinker. You think they're regretting that right now? Do you think Nancy Pelosi regrets that right now? Chuck Schumer? Oh, crap. Maybe we should have kept Joe. Maybe it would have been better. During their debate on Tuesday, Colin Allred did not mention Kamala Harris's name once, despite Cruz frequently tying their records together. In Texas, a morning consult poll conducted between October 6th and 15th shows that Kamala Harris is polling at 46%, Allred's polling at 45%. Macarena Martinez, which is Ted Cruz's campaign spokeswoman, told the Daily Caller, quote, Colin Allred is Kamala Harris. Just like her, he supports boys competing in girls' sports, open borders, leniency for criminals, and waging war on American energy. It's long been said that as Texas goes, so goes the nation. And a Senator Colin Allred would destroy our state and country as we know it. Meanwhile, John Tester has gone a step further in Montana, refusing to endorse Kamala Harris for president despite recruiting her to run for Senate when he was chairman of the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee in 2015. Tester has said his vote will be private. Sorry, I can't tell you who I'm voting for. That's a private decision. He thanked Biden for his public service and for endorsing an open nomination process. Tester was asked in early October about if he would vote for Kamala. He said, quote, that's between me and the ballot box. Uh-oh. That's not good for Kamala. Not good news for Kamala. Now, let me take you to the swing states where things get even more interesting. The blue wall states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, where we have a number of Senate races going on, 3 Senate races there. Those are the key states where Kamala, she has to win them or else her path to the presidency collapses. And in Wisconsin, we have the Hovde-Baldwin race. Tammy Baldwin, the Democrat there. And their commercials are beginning to, these Democrats, senators, their commercials are beginning to feature how close they are to, no, not Kamala, no, not even Joe Biden, to Donald Trump. Tammy Baldwin is now running on her proximity to Trump and her ability to work with Trump. Listen to this spot.
Tammy Baldwin got President Trump to sign her Made in America bill.
And then she got President Biden to make it permanent.
Okay, Biden does feature a little bit in that ad, but so the idea is like, I'm very bipartisan. I can work with Trump. So Baldwin's pitch in Wisconsin is, look how closely I can work with Donald Trump. If Donald Trump's on the way, you're going to want somebody who can work with him, and you should pick me, Tammy Baldwin, she says. Now, meanwhile, the Hovde campaign is pointing out that she hates Trump supporters, hates Trump himself, hates his supporters, and they're running this ad today as Tammy Baldwin tries to tether herself to Trump.
One of the most offensive, hateful, unacceptable presidential candidates we've ever had. So what does that say about the people who support him?
Tammy Baldwin hates Trump and Trump voters. She's radical, extreme, wrong.
Oh, man, things are getting interesting. So that's Wisconsin. Let's move on now. Let's move on to Pennsylvania, where we have incumbent Senator Bob Casey running against Dave McCormick there. Bob Casey's commercial is now featuring, yes, indeed, the same feature, Donald Trump.
Casey bucked Biden to protect fracking, and he sided with Trump to end NAFTA and put tariffs on China to stop them from cheating.
I don't know. I might be enjoying this a little too much, but now you have these Democrats running for Senate who are saying, look how close I am to Donald Trump, and no word about Kamala. In fact, that word doesn't even come out of their mouths. They don't even know how to pronounce her name because they don't even bother to say it. They don't even bother to say it. No mentions of Kamala Harris and how great she's going to be for the country. Nothing like that. Instead, I can work with Trump. Meanwhile, Michigan, another complicated state for Kamala Harris and for Trump. They're both competing there today. They're both there today, campaigning. You've got that race between Mike Rogers and Elisa Slotkin, the Democrat. And there, Slotkin is now saying that she wants people to split ticket vote for her. She's outright bragging that you should, if you're a Trump voter, you should consider splitting your vote to vote for Slotkin. She's not even running as a unified ticket anymore. She's saying, look, I understand. If you don't want to vote for Kamala, trust me, I get it. There's lots of people who don't want to do that. Here's Fox News reporting on this today, and it includes that audio of Elisa Slotkin saying, I've been split ticket supported before. It can happen again.
And he could also, John, benefit from split ticket voters. In fact, it's something that Democratic Senate candidate Elisa Slotkin has been highlighting on the campaign trail.
I represent a Trump voting district, right? I wouldn't be here without Trump Slotkin voters. And there's a window open right now.
Another Democrat who is also running for her seat here in Michigan told me yesterday that despite the fact that she is definitely supporting Kamala Harris, she is acknowledging the fact that Trump has this ability to turn out the vote, and it could make all the difference.
It could make all the difference. So there you have, it sounded like that Aisha Hasni, who was reporting there, was basically saying there's at least two Democrats, Elisa Slotkin and somebody else that she spoke with, who are saying, yeah, like split ticket voting may be the way to go. And Trump has all the energy. So, you know, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I do think that that's the kind of thing. If you're ever looking for little indicators that you can pick up on and say, okay, how's the election going? Look no further than the Democrats who have access to the internal polling saying the last thing I need to do is be associated with Kamala Harris. In fact, I would rather be associated with Donald Trump. And I just ran down, that was Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. This is where all of the attention in the country is focused. Of course, the Sun Belt states very much do matter. But those so-called blue wall states, essential for Kamala's path, essential. And the Democrats running for Senate there are saying, I'd rather be associated with Trump. Isn't that amazing? I know in Dan Bongino's program, Jim and company, they were just running down the fact that in Arizona, you've had some of these early voting locations, and they can't even find Kamala supporters. I hate to get too optimistic about all of this because you really want everybody, you want to have all of your countrymen fighting with their every last breath here for a better outcome than another 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, right? That's you need everybody a little nervous, or maybe a lot nervous, about what the results are going to be. I've got family in Pennsylvania texting me today about early voting and concern about, you know, whether they should do it now or election day. And I'm saying, do it now. Do it now. Lock that vote in. I don't want to hear about a power outage in a critical red district in a swing state on election day and then find out like, oh, sorry that we've had a lot of troubles processing ballots today. Enough of that. Those early votes, so critical to get in. So critical to get in. Lock them in. Free up the opportunity for the Trump campaign to fetch other voters, not to have to spend their time chasing you, not to have to spend their money chasing you. I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world. And so far, so good. If you talk to, as I do, if you talk to these Republican operatives who are actually a part of the campaigns or are working on giving good data to the campaigns, what they're saying is, man, these early votes, not only are we seeing people on the first day, we're seeing them on the second, on the third, on the fourth, and on and on and on. In other words, it's a sustained gush of energy from Republican voters in places like Georgia, in places like Virginia. So we're in the midst of a very real fight for this election right now. And the data, as even Democrats understand it, is reflecting well for President Trump. And lastly, just to reiterate a point that we have to reflect on a lot, which is if you look at the polling data here and compare it to 16 and 20, Donald Trump is in the single best position he has ever been in running for president of the United States on this very day in both of those election cycles. It's hard to ask for more other than an outright polling lead all the way across the board everywhere. But of course, in order to win this thing, you just got to keep your head down and keep pushing, which is what's happening right now. A lot of enthusiasm, though. I said my buddy Brian out there in Fairfax County, he said people are very vocal about their Trump support. They're standing in line. And he said, you know, they got a lot of sample ballots for Trump out there. He said, it feels strange to me. Because this is very odd. You know, he's a Fairfax County guy. He's been there for a long time. It feels very strange to him, he says, seeing all these fellow countrymen who all want Trump to win, all standing with him in line. It's cool, though. I like hearing it. 320.
For me, one of the real questions I have is whether the polls are actually going to be any good this time around. Because if you look in 2020, what you see in the final polls in Wisconsin, you saw Biden up by 8. The actual result was Biden by a point. I'll note I rounded that number up. I think it was 0.63 percentage points. So the question is Are the polls actually going to be right this time around, or are they going to, again, underestimate Donald Trump? If so, Donald Trump is in a very strong position in the Badger State.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Can you believe Wisconsin's is again kind of one of the most critical states in the country? Of course, you know, like Hillary Clinton blew that hardcore in 2016, not campaigning there, ceding that territory to Trump, and he seized it really well. We'll see what happens. But that CNN's Harry Enten saying, man, if these polls blow it by even a small amount, and they need to be corrected once again in Trump's favor, Trump's in a good position right now. He also points out that Trump is more popular. Did you know this? Trump is more popular. Forget the who you're voting for polling. He's more popular right now than he has been in any of these major presidential campaigns.
I think there are a lot of folks, such as myself, who think that Donald Trump's unpopularity is baked in. But here's the deal. If you believe that Donald Trump has somehow become less popular over time, let me change your mind about that. In fact, he is more popular at this point in the campaign than he was at this point in the 2020 campaign or the 2016 campaign. Look, he's still underwater, right, with a negative 9-point net favorability rating. But that is higher than he was in 2020 at minus 12 points when he nearly won. And it is way higher than the minus 27 net favorability back in 2016 when he did win. So I think there's this real question in Kamala Harris's mind, in the campaign's mind, why is Trump more popular now than he was at this point in 2020 and 2016? And I think that is why you're seeing the sharpening attacks, because they want to put him back down to here, or even there's no way that they're necessarily going to back down to here, but they want to make Trump more unpopular than he is right now, because he's more popular now than either point in 2020 or 2016.
Which is why you've got Vice President Harris on the campaign trail now. She's out there today trying to make statements that, oh, Trump is so tired, he's so exhausted, he can't do all of these events. This is her on the campaign trail saying that Trump's canceling interviews, he's exhausted, he can't hang. In other words, she's trying to make it seem like Trump is Biden.
And now he is ducking debates and canceling interviews. Come on. And check this out. His own campaign team recently said it is because of exhaustion.
This is a woman who barely steps out to do anything. She doesn't take any questions. She rarely does an interview. When she does an adversarial interview, she collapses. She folds like origami. And meanwhile, Trump did the Al Smith dinner last night that she skipped. He woke up, did Fox and Friends this morning. He's campaigning in Michigan. He did Dan Bongino's interview today. I can't do any of that. I'm half that guy's age. If I did a big dinner last night, you're not catching me on national television the next morning. No thanks. I got to sleep in a little. I'm a little tuckered out from the night before. It's unreal. Coming up, Senator Rick Santorum will be with us. We'll talk to him about that Al Smith dinner and Kamala's insults to Catholics. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 3:35 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, Chris Bedford joins us at 4 o'clock from The Blaze. We'll talk to him about the current state of the race, as well as that Al Smith dinner last night. And then David Strom joins us from Hot Air at 5 o'clock for a preview of that. The headline on his writing today, The Smell of Desperation. Can't wait to chat with him about that. And I'll talk to you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We had that Al Smith dinner last night in New York, and it was a charity fundraiser for Catholics, and it was hosted by the comedian Jim Gaffigan. He had this to say:
Catholic president, right? After JFK, President Biden couldn't be here tonight. The DNC made sure of that. That's... I guess I'm the only one that reads history.
Yeah, good line. Kamala Harris made some sort of weird video appearance where Molly Shannon, the former SNL star, she recreated her role as Mary Catherine Gallagher, supposed to be a bizarro Catholic schoolgirl who sniffs her own armpits. Here's some of Kamala Harris's performance on that video.
Your Eminence and distinguished guests, the Al Smith dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Elliott. Mary Catherine Elliott. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I smell them like that.
It was like that the whole time. It was painful, actually. Really painful. So painful that even Jim Gaffigan reacted to it, who in the past has had some pretty substantial Trump derangement syndrome. Here's what he said.
I don't know. As I watched that, I couldn't help but think of now I know how my kids felt when I FaceTimed into a piano recital they were at.
Yeah, good line. And then President Trump spoke last night, and he said things like this.
It's a true pleasure to be with you this evening. Amazing pleasure. And these days, it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance. Anytime I don't get a subpoena, I'm very happy.
President Trump actually had a great set last night. For more on all of this, I want to bring in former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. He's a member of the Catholics for Trump Coalition. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Thank you, Vince. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. The Al Smith dinner, a great tradition where typically you get the two candidates ribbing each other. But that didn't happen last night. Kamala skipped it. Do you have any sense why?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things I can say. I mean, I'm sure she wouldn't have felt comfortable in a group that she has been quite antagonistic towards in her time in public office. Everything from questioning a candidate when she was a candidate for judge, when she was a Supreme Court, not Supreme Court, when she was a United States Senator, questioning their membership of the Knights of Columbus as a group that would be a disqualifier.
Yes.
The Knights of Columbus, of course, is a very important backbone to almost every parish in America. It's a Catholic men's group to help support parishes all over the country, and
yes,
it's about as mainstream as you can get. But for Kamala Harris, anything related to the church is because the church is pro-life and for traditional values. That's a threat to her and to her ideology. So. Yeah, I'm sure she would have felt very uncomfortable around a whole bunch of Knights of Columbus, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're right about that. There's been multiple judicial nominees that she's questioned in that way. Among them, Paul Mady, Brian Boisher, and Peter Phipps, all Catholics appointed by President Trump to those roles, and she questioned them for their membership in the Knights of Columbus. These are the guys who, collect food for the poor and host spaghetti dinners at Catholic churches all across the country, and she was trying to frame them as extremists. That's pretty contemptible.
No, I mean it's just not that. I mean, if you look at her work as the Attorney General of California, she went after a lot of groups, religious groups, pro-life groups, Catholic groups. That were opposing the left agenda in California and sought to disclose all the donors and all the people who are involved in these 501c3 organizations, so they could turn and weaponize government and the private sector on individuals who supported causes that were traditional value causes. I mean, she's someone who weaponizes government against people that she disagrees with, and there's no group that is a bigger threat in her mind to the radical agenda, the woke agenda of her and the radical left and the Catholic Church, and so I'm sure she wouldn't have felt comfortable there.
Yeah, in fact, she weaponized the California Department of Justice to go after David DeLayden, who's associated with a group that exposed Planned Parenthood's sale of baby parts. And she decided to destroy his life. This is the way she wields power. It's against the kind of people who... I got to tell you, Vince, it's shocking to me to hear the left and Democrats and the media talk about Trump being a threat to democracy when Trump had every opportunity when he was president to go after his political opponents, and he didn't one time do it.
and from Barack Obama to Joe Biden and to Kamala Harris, every single one of them recently, as the Democratic Party has become more socialist authoritarian, they have used the power of government to persecute their political opponents. And that's not a threat to democracy, but Donald Trump saying peacefully protest is. And that's the, again, it's the double standard. And it is, in fact, a threat to democracy to elect people like this.
Now, I have a theory that because of her time as a government prosecutor and the fact that she has a history of abuse in that role, that she'd be even more dangerous than Joe Biden when it comes to running the United States Department of Justice. Do you think that'd be the case?
Again, all you have to do is look at her track record, and her track record is one. I mean, she is one of the authors of a bill called the Disclose Act, which would, as a federal law, that would require any nonprofit organization to disclose their donors so they can be exposed to, these would be folks who give to the Knights of Columbus, who don't have to disclose, or give to the Catholic Church. Now all of that would be out there for the government to then peruse, and for these left-wing groups that are not at all hesitant to go out and boycott and do other things to their businesses or to their houses or to their children. This is weaponization, and she's not shy about it. She's out there proposing legislation to make this happen in America.
Yes.
Nobody talks about it. I don't even hear the president. President Trump doesn't even talk about it, but she's a bully, and because she is with a bunch of bullies, and that's the left in America.
You know, what you're talking about, the Disclose Act and the effort to try and basically, make Americans vulnerable for the ways that they want to make their charitable contributions. The Democrat Party has a long history of doing this. In fact, there was a major landmark decision in the Supreme Court now almost 70 years ago called NAACP v. Alabama, where the state of Alabama, run by Democrats, was trying to force the NAACP to reveal its individual donors so that they could be intimidated. Yep. This is the history of Democrats, and the court knocked that down. They said, no, you have a First Amendment right to make these contributions and not be harassed for them.
Stripes don't change. The reality is the Democratic Party is the Democratic Party, the party of slavery, and the party that was against civil rights. All of these this is the same party that uses, that does not respect the dignity of the individual and the individual's ability to make their decisions and to believe what they want to believe and to live those beliefs out. They want to weaponize either society or the government itself to bring people in line with their particular thought, and that is a threat. Look, Vince, you probably have talked about this. I think the last poll I saw is a majority of Democrats no longer believe in the First Amendment. You heard John Kerry the other day saying that the Constitution is an impediment to the things we want to do. This is who they are. They say they love America. Well, yeah, they love making lots of money in a beautiful country and all, but they don't love the founding principles of America. That's reality. They don't respect the Constitution. They want to destroy it. They constantly try to amend it through judicial decisions. This is a group that truly is a threat to the American principles that they don't love, but most Americans still do.
I know that in your political career, Senator Santorum, you've been very focused on the needs of American workers, the middle class, advancing them. And we're watching right now, I think, one of the most important realignments that certainly has happened in the United States this century. If you don't have a college degree, if you're a middle class guy, if you've got a family, by and large, statistics show that you are now a Trump supporter. If you're a union member, if you're a Teamsters guy, if you're a member of the UAW, the odds are you're actually a Trump supporter now. What is happening in our country, and why is that so significant?
Well, as you recall, Vince, 10 years ago, I wrote a book after the 2012 election when I ran for president called Blue Collar Conservative, Committing to an America That Works. And I wrote that not as a visionary saying this is the future of the Republican Party, although I believed it was, but I wrote it because that's what I saw happening in the party. I saw it happening in Pennsylvania, and I believed as we saw more suburban areas and college-educated people because of cultural issues. Let me just emphasize this. It's a blue-collar movement, but it's not just because of economics. Yes, economics is a piece of it, and it's an important piece of making sure that the opportunities for wealth creation and growth also benefit those who are blue-collar Americans. But at the core of it, where it began, was because of the drift of the cultural Marxism, of the woke agenda, alienating working people, blue-collar people who have traditional common sense values. They don't accept the fact, because they haven't been indoctrinated at Ivy League universities and such, that men can be women and women can be men. They don't believe that, in girls' sports. I mean, all of these things that are more cultural in nature are things that are very off-putting to the vast majority of Americans, again, who haven't gone through the indoctrination that those who live in the suburbs go through. And that to me was the future. And Trump has picked up on that and obviously done a great job in galvanizing that support.
That's right. Those who are not brainwashed are critical thinkers and more open-minded about where they give their vote. Hey, let me ask you, as someone who's run for Senate a number of times, Senator Rick Santorum is who we're speaking with, and especially in a state like Pennsylvania, I started the show today by talking about the Democrats who are running in these so-called blue wall states for Senate. And none of them really want anything to do with Kamala Harris right now. Tammy Baldwin is running ads about how connected to Trump she is. Bob Casey in Pennsylvania running ads about how connected to Trump he is. And Elisa Slotkin is now telling voters in Michigan they should feel free to split the ticket to vote for Trump and her. What do you make of that? What does that tell you?
Well, they're looking at the numbers, and Trump is actually doing very well in Pennsylvania. The internal numbers I've seen, he's doing incredibly well in Pennsylvania, and the same thing in Michigan and Wisconsin, Wisconsin even more than Michigan. I think that's part of it, but don't be fooled by this. I mean, every one of those folks wants to do something which would destroy the republic, and that is eliminate the filibuster in the United States Senate. They all have come out and said, join Kamala Harris. They say, oh, you can vote for Trump. They joined Kamala Harris in the call to turn the United States Senate and the Congress into a mob rule type of organization where a simple majority will fundamentally change this country. And don't hesitate for a moment to think that they won't try to pack the Supreme Court. They won't try to add D.C. and Puerto Rico as states, and don't think that they won't try to pass a voting rights bill that will put California laws on every state in the union. This is what they are wanting to do. This is not a Trump agenda. This is not, I'm just like Donald Trump. They are nothing like Donald Trump. They are radicals, and it's important to be called out for what they are.
Senator Rick Santorum, always. All right, we've got audio pouring in, as we often do, to the program. Kamala Harris today was just asked by MSNBC, of all places, what will you do differently from Joe? Remember, in the Brett Baer interview, she said, my presidency will not be a continuation of Joe's presidency. Here's how she's answering this question.
President Biden said this week that every president has to cut their own path. What is one policy that you would have done differently over these last 3.5 years than President Biden?
I mean, to be very candid with you even including Mike Pence, vice presidents are not critical of their presidents. I think that really actually, in terms of the tradition of it and also just going forward, it does not make for a productive and important relationship.
I'm not allowed to tell you what I don't like about Joe Biden's presidency. She says that we are not critical of our presidents as vice president. So in other words, the implication is Joe really screwed things up, but I can't say it out loud. I'm just being too loyal. Remember, when she was asked originally on The View about this, of all places.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Wait a second. Okay, so the first answer she gave on this subject is actually I was kind of the decision maker. I was a critical part of all of the major decisions. And that's true. She was the tie-breaking vote on some of the most outrageous spending our country has ever seen. If you hate the cost of living right now, you are not voting for Kamala. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. She did that. Remember those stickers we used to put on gas stations? I did that. That's Joe Biden pointing at the gas prices. Kamala's saying, I should have had a sticker there too. It's true. She should have. Chris Bedford joins us next from The Blaze, 4 o'clock.